Jeremiah here with Dana Larsen. Dana, longtime marijuana activist. Everybody on this show knows. Good to have you on again, Dana.
Always a pleasure, Jer.
So, Dana, a couple things I wanted to talk to you about today. One very exciting thing, first on the list, is your new book that has just come out and arrived on the shelves. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. It's called Cannabis in Canada, The Illustrated History, and really I've been working on this book on and off for like 20 years now. Some of the art in here was drawn in the 1995, and some of it was drawn just a few months ago, but it's about 140 pages of beautifully illustrated story of cannabis in Canada. And we start off in 1606 with the very first crop that was planted here, and it goes all the way through right up to modern times in the election of Trudeau. And I learned a ton of stuff writing this book, and I guarantee that no matter what you think you know about cannabis in Canada, you're going to learn a lot when you read it.
No kidding. Now, this is not just like a small little book either. I mean, this is quite a piece. How many pages is it, Dana?
The whole thing's about 160, but there's a few pages of ads, and there's pages of references in that. So the content's about 140 pages. And as we printed it oversized to show off the art, so it's like 13 by 9.5, which makes it kind of stand out a bit. And really, I was able to find all kinds of fascinating information about hemp cultivation in Canada by the French and the English colonists in the 1700s, and medical marijuana and recreational cannabis use in Canada during the 1800s. Some fascinating references from doctors and patients talking about using cannabis for all kinds of ailments, smoking it. You could buy pre-rolled joints in Canada for about 80 years, from the mid-1800s until Prohibition came about in the 1930s. Much like it is now. You go to a pharmacist and buy pre-rolled joints just like you go to a dispensary and you buy them now. So people were doing this over 100 years ago. And there's all kinds of wonderful stories in here that I think people will enjoy.
Yeah, that's one of the things, Dana, when I was reading it that I really loved was that it's not just, a recent history of marijuana activism, of what we've been up to in the last while and all this kind of stuff. This is really a lot of treasures that you've unearthed that, I had absolutely no idea. And some really just bizarre things that aren't really part of the sort of known stuff in our society today that I think a lot of people would be really surprised by. So that's
as Canadians, most of us get the American information, and so a lot of us know George Washington grew hemp, and we know about Harry Anslinger, the great prohibitionist in the U.S., but who's heard of Colonel Sharman, the Canadian who really was the chief architect of the whole UN's war on drugs, and really was the guy who came up with the idea of making conspiracy to commit a drug offense a crime, and was Harry Anslinger's soulmate. How many Canadians know about Dr. Goodwin in the late 1800s, who was the head of the Nova Scotia Medical Association, who talked extensively about the benefits of cannabis for many ailments, as well as recreational use, as well as using it to enhance sexual pleasure too. And this is like 1898, and it was a big article he had in the Nova Scotia Medical Journal talking about this. And there's many stories like this that are really wonderful to be able to share.
Mm-hmm. And some of them are, I think, even relevant today. A lot of the stuff in Canada it was similar to what happened in the United States. A lot of the racial issues and how the drug war came out of those issues as well here in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the story of Prohibition in Canada, it's related to, but different than that in the U.S. And what I found interesting was that in the 1930s, when they finally banned cultivation of cannabis in all of its forms, there's a lot of newspaper stories about the police busting pharmacies, busting hemp fields. They burned the hemp crops in the fields in the 1930s. The farmers had no idea that this crop was a dangerous narcotic drug, they would say. And it's quite fascinating to see this history and how cannabis hemp was demonized and destroyed, the propaganda, the misinformation that came out, the lies that were told. And the book also, so I started writing it 20 years ago. Well, a good portion of this book took place after I started writing it. The last half of it is about the modern times and profiling a lot of the activists and people who have an impact now. And I think people will be fascinated. I think it would be a great Christmas gift for the stoner in your family or for yourself. And it's only $10, so it's a deal of a lifetime.
No kidding.
It's a wonderful project, and I'm really proud of this book, and I think people will enjoy it.
And Dana, you worked with an artist on this project. This is like a graphic novel style. It's completely illustrated, hand-drawn. Can you tell us about the art and the artist?
Yeah, sure. It's all illustrated in black and white, and he draws from a lot of original photographs, documents, a lot of portraits of people are in there. And he did a lot of original research. The guy's name is Patrick Dowers. He actually lives in Seattle, and he also he's done a lot of other marijuana history-related work. He did a book of Hemp for Victory, the American pro-hemp propaganda film that came out during World War II years ago. And he actually worked for Cannabis Culture for a long time. He was our in-house illustrator, doing a lot of art for us. If people remember the magazine, if they were readers back in the day, we used to have those sections, drug war fun and hemp horizons and MedPot updates and things like that. He would always do the cartoons for those things. He's a very talented illustrator, and he really has a good archive of his own materials. He was able to get a lot of original art and original photographs of things from history and work them into the art in the book.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful the way it looks, and we have a bunch of them at Cannabis Culture right now. Dana, where else can you get the book? Is there places across Canada it's going to be available?
Well, right now I'm in Canada in Toronto. I'm going to be there in a couple hours. They're doing a promotion. If you become a member, they're going to give you a free copy and pay for it. So that's a deal everyone would like. So if you're in Toronto today or tomorrow, come check us out there. But if you go to cannabishistory.ca, you can order the book online from our website. And while you're there, you might want to pick up a copy of Green Buds and Hash as well, my other book, or I've got Harry Pothead and the Marijuana Stone being reprinted in another week too, so you could really get all your marijuana-related book Christmas shopping done at one stop.
A lot of stocking stuff.
But cannabishistory.ca is the website where you can get the book.
Cannabishistory.ca, and hopefully we'll have it in the Cannabis Culture HQ store too.
I think you've got them for sale right now already in Vancouver there, of course. Get them over the counter. And in fact, next weekend, I'm going to be doing, on Saturday all day, a signing promotion at the Cannabis Culture store. And then the weekend after that, I'll be doing it again, but also promoting Harry Pothead, which will be out then as well. So if you're in Vancouver and you want to meet me and get a signed copy, come down to Mark Emery's Cannabis Culture Lounge store next weekend on Saturday, and I'll be there.
Awesome, Dana. That's very cool. Now, I wanted also to talk to you about big news that's happened here in the province of British Columbia. It's similar to news that had happened in Ontario not too long ago, where the Governmental Workers Union here in British Columbia, it's called the BCGEU, has come out and actually made a partnership with the local private liquor stores in the province to lobby the government to ask if they can sell marijuana here in this province. Now, at first, when I heard this and online, I was thinking to myself that it didn't really sound like a good idea, linking marijuana and liquor, and there's a lot of problematic things that could come out of that sort of link up. But other states like Washington State have it going on. And then Dana, you kind of last night gave me a few quotes and kind of changed my mind on a few points. So I thought I'd have you on to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I do have issues around marijuana and alcohol being lumped together and being sold at the same spot in some ways. I don't think we should be encouraging people to do the two together, and cannabis is much safer than alcohol, so there's issues around that. But at the same time, there's advantages to this too. What they called for was not for a monopoly, that they're the only ones who should be able to do it. They specifically are referring to non-medical cannabis, so they advocate for the medical cannabis program to be separate from that, and that could include dispensaries that are operating as well. They explicitly supported home cultivation, and really they called for kind of a beer model, which we've used the wine model, the beer model. I talk about that a lot too. That model means you can grow it in your own home, just like you can brew your own beer and wine in your own home. You can share it with your friends and family with no tax, no rules or restrictions on that. And if you want to sell it in a store, there's got to be labeling and requirements and safety issues, like you can't spray it with toxic pesticides and things like that. So that's all very positive in that sense. And as long as it's not limited only to those stores. I mean, the idea would also be that just like you can get a liquor license and you can have a pub or whatever, you can get a liquor license or a liquor cannabis license and only sell cannabis. So if you wanted to be a cannabis-only place, you could do that. And perhaps the rules that would come out would be structured to make that process a bit different than the one for alcohol. Mm-hmm. And also the advantage of this is that if we have to create separate outlets for all the cannabis sales, it means a lot of towns and municipalities will try to ban those places with with bylaws and restrict them. A lot of cannabis unfriendly cities will make sure that no cannabis is available in their town. But if the liquor stores that are already there start selling cannabis, it's very difficult for municipalities to stop that process or to block it. And so I think that would mean a more rapid availability of cannabis to more people. It would be a positive step in many ways, I think. And as long as they're not getting a monopoly, then the only issue I really have is about cannabis and alcohol being sold together, because they really shouldn't be combined. But at the same time, we want cannabis to be sold at as many places as possible. And so, I have mixed feelings about it, but overall, I think it would be a positive step forward that would help a lot of people and get marijuana to those who need it. And I think it would loosen things up quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And there seems to be an emphasis on this idea that they don't want the monopoly. They don't want to take it away from the medical marijuana dispensaries that are there now. They want to function alongside of exactly what's happening now and really make no difference to what's happening now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would alter things, because you'd have a lot more options where to get your cannabis. But we're all about competition and opening things up. I don't think dispensaries should have a monopoly either. I think it should be an open thing. So, we're going to see how it all goes. But I think it's certainly positive that the public debate is much more around about how we're going to sell it, where we're going to sell it, who's going to sell it, as opposed to how many years you get in jail for selling it. So I think this is a very healthy process. I'm glad that influential groups, the BCGEU, is a very powerful union with a lot of money and a lot of contacts, and having them come out advocating for this kind of change, I think it does our movement good.
Well, and that's really one of the other big things about it, is when you have a large organization that has the power that they do behind you, it really puts a lot of momentum going forward. And as you said, I think that Damien Kettlewell, who was representing the group, did say that there is in their plan a way that local counties could opt out if they didn't want it. He said, we still have some dry counties for alcohol as well, and if they really don't want any part of it, they can. But he didn't think that was going to happen very much because of that momentum that they have.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible some municipalities that are really against could still cause problems. We're seeing that in Colorado and Washington and even California, where some cities and towns don't want these places and try to restrict them. Ultimately, that will fail, just like cities and towns can ban alcohol in Canada if they want to. But there's the number that do, you can count on one hand. It's a very small collection. And so, we'll see how it goes. I do have mixed feelings about it, but overall, I think it's very positive that we've got these groups coming out. They see the money in it. They see that there's going to mean jobs for them, and it's going to mean opportunities for them, and there's nothing wrong with that as far as I see. Cannabis should provide jobs for all kinds of people, and so I think this is a very positive step.
I think in my research, it seems that there's a moratorium on new liquor stores opening at the moment in the province because of some other stuff that's going on with the grocery stores being allowed to soon carry liquor, and there's a bunch of changes happening. So I wonder, if we're moving into a model where a lot more people are going to be allowed to sell alcohol, like grocery stores, at some point, I guess that would affect the whole marijuana thing as well. Maybe we'd see marijuana in a grocery store.
That would be ideal. That's what we want, really, right? We want it to be widely accessible, and they have been opening things up a lot in BC in terms of alcohol access, and a lot of those are good changes. I'm not a big fan of alcohol, but I have no problem with people being able to access it. Yeah. And so absolutely, I think that if we can move towards cannabis in grocery stores, that's what we want in the long run. But it's going to be a piecemeal process, and there's going to be 3 steps forward and 2 steps back and that kind of thing as we move towards this. But I don't think we should be complaining when a group comes out and says, hey, we want to sell marijuana legally. I think we should be happy about that. That's what we want, right? So.
Now, Dana, of course,
we should be applauding that.
You're the founder of one of Vancouver's longest-running medical marijuana dispensaries. You have 2 locations in town. Now, with the obvious changes coming up, have you put a lot of thought into how that affects the business model that's going on with you guys? Will you guys be trying to sell recreational marijuana rather than just medical, or what's the plan?
I prefer the word social or cultural marijuana than recreational myself, really. But yeah, well, in our dispensary, we're part of CAMCB. We applied as a compassion club. We've got 2 locations. Probably one of them is going to be forced to shut down because of our location. The other one, I'm hoping we can keep open. We'll see. So we applied as a compassion club, and so that restricts us to how we can provide things. But it's a very changing scene in Vancouver, and I'm not sure. Ultimately, I'd prefer to be able to sell cannabis to every adult who wants some, and maybe offering a discount to medical users who need it. That's how the model I would prefer to have. But as it stands right now, we're still strictly medical. We're following the same protocols we've followed for the last 7 years. and I don't think it'll be changing at any time in the immediate future.
Well, cool, Dana. I really appreciate it. And best of luck with the Toronto trip. I know you're slanging books over there right now. So, again, can you drop where you are in Toronto?
I'm going to be at Canawide Top Shelf. It's on Baldwin Street. And I'm there today from 5 p.m., I think, until about 10. And then tomorrow I'm there pretty much all day from noon until 8. And then there's an after party as well. And if you come down, if you're a member or you become a member of Canawide, I'll give you a free copy, a signed copy of my book, Cannabis in Canada, The Illustrated History. So it's a great deal of a lifetime there.
And the place online, the name of the website one more time?
CannabisHistory.ca. You can also go to greenbudsandhash.com, and it'll be there as well. But CannabisHistory.ca takes you right to the book website.
Fantastic. Dana, thank you so much, and we'll talk again soon.
Right on. Thanks, Jared. Take care.
Yeah, you too.